That's why I say, just open it up, how do you, that's to kind of open the gate.
Yeah, and I mean, because it's your problem.
All right, we'll go ahead and reconvene the board meeting. We did open the board meeting in a closed session for litigation, discussion of litigation, and reopening now into our public portion of the school board meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Buck, for the superintendent's report.
President Laverty. So a variety of good news items today. The first one is I'm pleased tonight to congratulate Jeff Sneecloth, Associate Principal at Taft Middle School, on being named the 2016-2017 Iowa Assistant Principal of the Year by School Administrators of Iowa. So there's Jeff. A committee of Iowa Assistant Principals selected Jeff for the award, and the recognition included his innovative accomplishments in the areas of behavior intervention and conflict resolution strategies at Taft. As Iowa's recipient, he's a candidate for National Assistant Principal of the Year, and he has served as Taft's Associate Principal since 2010. So, nice award for Jeff and well-deserved. We want to take this opportunity to ask everyone to save the date for our annual State of the District event. We'll be celebrating our diverse community of learners on Tuesday, December 20th. The breakfast program will include student entertainment and speakers, as well as a look at what we're doing in our schools to help students develop the skills that employers are seeking. We'll also recognize many of our business partners as a part of the event. Over the past few weeks, we've been meeting with staff at Washington High School and also connecting with Washington parents through the school PTA to update them about the continuum of services for our high school students. The center of the work is to identify multiple and rigorous pathways for students to embrace a future in which they are prepared, understand their passions, and have a plan beyond high school. We began this conversation a few years ago, and it continues to move forward. As a district, we've been reviewing research on the changing economy, the importance of high schools as the new minimum, that is high school diploma, and the need for all students to be prepared to attend a four-year college with recognition that there are multiple pathways to a prosperous future. We're reviewing our internal data as well, and we have similar meetings scheduled for Kennedy and Jefferson communities as this conversation continues. And I believe we have a more in-depth presentation related to this ready to go for December. I think I'm doing that right. Okay. Seventh grade students at Wilson Middle School hosted a literacy learning fair last week as a way to demonstrate proficient understanding of determining themes and central ideas. As part of their natural world unit, students teamed up to construct projects that recreated and simulated natural disasters, survival situations, and natural energy sources. This allowed students to both experience and learn about the topics they chose, while also learning about themselves as individuals working within a group setting. Parent and community members attended the event and provided feedback to the students. As you know, we have lots of outstanding student artists in our schools, and we want to take a few minutes to highlight some of those projects tonight. Van Buren students painted a city snowplow, so they're looking forward to seeing it out there on the streets of Cedar Rapids this winter. Kennedy art students are opening an exhibit of their work later this week with a special reception. Artists from Kenwood Leadership Academy created companion interpretations for our current district gallery exhibit of Grant Wood's study on tree planting, which became part of this his Arbor Day painting. Jefferson High School students were invited to design and craft unique holiday ornaments for the upcoming Festival of Trees community service event. And the young adults at our Transition Center are creating and selling decorative greeting cards as a special project to support some of their community experiences, and we captured some of their efforts in this Cedar Rapids story video.
I'm working on tracing circles so that Maureen over there can cut them out.
The tape's on the back, just like here, and just draw it, and before you know it, it luckily looks like, well, like this.
We have a card business that we call it, called Handmade by the TC students. About a year and a half ago, we didn't have enough money to go to Camp Courageous. Our fund had run out, and we decided that that was really important, that we needed to go. So I started making cards and selling them at flea markets and to friends and things like that. And it sort of morphed into a project where we work on them here at school, the students work on them. We have order forms, we do Christmas, Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, things like that. And it's really cool because it's a project that all of our students can work on in some capacity.
I stamp it, and then I put it on the side and we dry it.
You draw it like this. You first just sign something Christmassy, like Let It Snow, Jingle Bells, Jingle Bell Rock.
Our goal is to help students transition into adult life as independently as possible. All of the different pieces of making cards, they may be something that you would have to do in a job, and they also require you to follow directions and do the specific task that's been given to you. That's a really important thing that we work on. Is it might not be the exact skill, it's that you follow directions and do what's asked of you and do it to the best of your ability. So with these cards, it's really important that they make them look as nice as possible. And that shows that if they go into a job, they'll do what's asked of them and they will do the best job that they can, regardless of what the specific task is.
So there's some information if you're interested in those cards. Yeah, very nice story. And then we have one more video this evening. You may recall we've done a number of these alumni spotlight videos, and we have one of those tonight. Our Cedar Rapids School District has a rich and diverse group of alumni, and we're proud to have the opportunity to applaud their successes. We're ready to go with the video tonight.
If you've attended a production at Theater Cedar Rapids over the last 8 years, you have likely enjoyed the talents of 1974 Kennedy High School graduate Joni Sackett, even though she wasn't performing on the stage.
Let's see, here's a couple. This was in here. This was in, this hideous thing, was in Dreamgirls.
Sackett is the costume designer for Theater Cedar Rapids and spends many days surrounded by racks and racks of clothing. She's enjoyed a varied career path, but regardless of the job, she's always been designing some sort of costume for herself, her friends, and others. And it all began in the Cedar Rapids schools.
We moved here when I was in 3rd grade, and I went to Wright, and then we moved over to close to Kennedy. And I went to Pierce only for 1 year, because then there was too many of us baby boomer children. So I went back to Wright for 5th and 6th grade. Went to Harding, which was fun, liked Harding a lot. Kind of a long bus ride, you know, bus wait in the freezing cold, that was no fun. And then went to Kennedy, which was great because I could walk.
At Kennedy, music and theater were her main activities. She was in the orchestra, concert choir, and the Happiness Swing Choir, as well as plays and musicals.
But I tried out for plays right away and helped in the costume shop, and Rob Ossink and Jim Irby, and it was great. It was a really good time. We had wonderful, wonderful talent too. So
Jim Irby was her favorite teacher, even though Joni was never in any of his classes. Instead, she learned from him in the high school theater department. According to Joni, he taught her how to distinguish between quality and mediocrity in art, something that has supported her throughout her entire career. After graduating from Kennedy, Sackett attended the University of Iowa, where she studied costume design, but was sidetracked.
I went into costume. I thought I was going to do costume design when I went there. And this is my cautionary tale I always tell the kids that come around. Ask for help. Because I got there and I told them that I could sew, and they gave me this really crazy, hard project to do as for part of my shop hours. And I got utterly spooked and didn't go back.
She graduated with a bachelor's degree in French. A work abroad program then led to a 10-year stay in London, where she performed, toured, and recorded as a singer and instrumentalist with several bands. After returning to the States, she worked in Los Angeles for a time, studied art history at the University of Memphis, and then moved to New York City, where she lived for 11 years, working in a variety of areas and enjoying all kinds of theater. She returned to Cedar Rapids in 2008 to be near her family and landed what she calls her dream job at Theater Cedar Rapids.
But I really did know it was time. So it was right after the flood. It was, I came back and visited in July, and then just kind of prepared and came back in December of 2008.
Sackett says that her job continues to inspire her.
Costumes hang there on a hanger, whatever. They get on the actors and they become something. I think the Thenardiers at the end of Les Mis. I had a hard time with them because I had seen some images that I didn't like. I didn't want to go in that direction, and I was really I was really finding my way. I just didn't know. And the two people who were playing them were so wonderful, and they were so specifically awesome looking. And I needed to really do them proud. And I happened to find an old illustration that I had saved from Sweeney Todd, because it's the same time period. And it was a fashion illustration, but a real parody of a fashion illustration. And so I took my inspiration from that. And they came out wonderfully. I loved them. I loved them. I mean, of course, once it was on them, they came alive. So that is also one of my favorite parts.
Joni credits her high school background in music and theater with helping her feel comfortable exploring the arts in many world-renowned venues, and how the arts instilled her with the confidence to interact with all kinds of people. Her advice for students today: try it all.
Theater and choir and orchestra, it doesn't matter what you're involved in, and it could be sports, or it could be pep club, or a business group, or all the different things. I think kids need to find somewhere to be, and they need to do something together. And I think they need to do it with teacher mentors and their peers, because one of the things that I find wonderful about doing shows here is when an adult actor is working with a youth actor, they're on the same level, because the hierarchy is the director and then the tech people. But the actors, you're on the same level. So I love that part. I think it's really important.
We're very pleased to celebrate district alum Joni Sackett and congratulate her on her career.
Wow, that's a great spotlight.
Awesome. Very nice. All right. Are there any board reports tonight? The board, many of us were at the meeting at Kirkwood Community College on Thursday evening, I believe, that was hosted with Grant Wood AEA and the Kirkwood board and all of the local school boards. And we had a chance to really learn in some breakout sessions some of the neat things that are going on in our communities, and we were able to highlight a few of the great things going on in the Cedar Rapids School District too, which I know they all appreciated. So that was a good learning experience. And then another board learning opportunity is this week in Des Moines at the Iowa Association of School Boards. So many of us will be at that, as well as the Urban Education Network meetings and learning opportunities in Des Moines, which is great. Brad alluded to this in a note to us, but he and I had a chance to meet with Dr. Ghosh, who's been very generous in supporting the school district and its students in advanced placement and some other programs for students that are struggling, I would say, more. And he renewed that commitment to us as a school district this week and let us know that he was even willing to consider some new opportunities as they come along. So I think that was exciting to hear his renewal of commitment to our students and to our district. So very exciting. And then the last thing I just wanted to say, there was this election, and I wasn't going to say anything, but I just saw the president of the University of Iowa sent out something, and I know a lot of other university presidents have said something about education just being the great place to value all different types of beliefs. This is the place where we as adults can help our students understand differences and help respect each other. And I just want to thank all of our staff and parents for helping our students do that, to understand this is a place where we value that learning and to treat each other with dignity and respect as we move forward. So I think that's all I'll say on that. And if anybody else has anything to add, I'd open that up. All right, terrific. Thank you so much. We did not have any requests tonight to speak before the board, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. And with the consent agenda, are there any items in particular that any board member would like to pull for question or comment in the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, because of the personnel report, this does require a motion and a second. Would somebody like to propose the motion?
So move to accept the consent agenda.
Great, and is there a second?
Second.
Great, and this is a roll call vote due to the personnel report.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Director Meisterling. Aye. Director Jansen.
Aye.
Director Jacobo.
Aye.
Director Westerkamp.
Aye.
Director Humbles.
Aye.
President Laverty.
Aye. Great, thank you. Next, we'll move on to a report by the Cedar Rapids Community Schools Foundation. Laurel, we'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Tonight we have Jen Newman, who is the current president of the Cedar Rapids School Foundation, along with Executive Director Karen Swanson, here to give the annual report.
Hi, welcome.
Good evening. I want to start with a big thank you to the Board of Education. On Friday night, we held the first ever Lip Sync for Learning event at CSPS Hall. And I specifically want to call out Kristen Jansen, Nancy Humbles, John Laverty, and the unforgettable Raphael Jacobo, who looks better in a dress than I do. So, for your performances. Everybody here, they actually were the grand champions and the People's Choice winners that night. So it was quite the show, and we'd love to see Board of Education versus Board of Education next year and see two teams come out. So Dr. Buck also sent a really entertaining video that we opened up the event with. I take it you guys have seen it. It was...
Bucket list activity.
It was really good. It was great. So thank you. And I feel like it really embodied the partnership that we've developed together. And I feel that the Board of Education and the foundation are in a really strong position to go into the next year, being able to serve more kids together, being able to strengthen that partnership. And I can't say thank you enough for your support. So that being said, changes in the next couple years. I want to start off with, first of all, we've changed our fiscal year, which is now coincides with the school year and your fiscal year, essentially. We did this because we would start off the fiscal year at a different time than you. Requests would come in, and we kind of would, and I mean this in a completely legal way, rob Peter to pay Paul throughout the year. So what we did was we evened that out. But for the next year, our finances are going to look a little funky as those reports come in. So keep in mind it's the change of the fiscal year. We have an abbreviated year, and then we'll be right back on track and everything will look normal again. The other change that I want to let you know about is after 3 years of having to look at me at these meetings, I finally get to pass the gavel. There's no real gavel, but I get to pass the gavel to Scott Drzymski, who will be presenting to you next year. He's with Alliant Energy. He is just a great guy, and he's going to continue to move the foundation forward. As board chair, it's really been my goal to up our communication, our presence, our awareness in the community, strengthen our relationship with the Board of Education. I feel like I can check those things off, and I feel like Scott will continue that agenda, and you can expect great things from him. I'm still on the board, I think, yes. After that, so I'm not kicked off, but I'm really looking forward to Scott's leadership. And then finally, the last thing I want to report on is we have I don't even know if I would say this is a good problem to have, but we've exhausted our funds for the student enrichment grants this year. That's a budgeted amount of $25,000. And what student enrichment grants do are provide for needs in the classroom, and they help fill that gap where, you know, you guys go out and you work to secure the funding, and you work with our legislature, and you try to do your best to get the appropriate funding for school, but we all know that sometimes that falls short, and that's where we try to bridge that gap. So we have, this early in the school year, had to suspend any more applications at this point in time. We are seeking grant funding to increase that and to be able to provide that, but we see this as a growing and increasing need, and you know, as we look at how we raise money and what we raise money for in the next year, I think we'll be taking a hard look at the SEG line and saying, what do we need to do to meet that need? So that is my report. I think this is the format where I don't take questions, right? Or
No, you can take questions.
I can take questions. So if you have any questions,
questions from the board?
My only question is, do you have a final dollar amount of what you were able to raise?
Do we have that final number? I know there was a little debate on the budget there.
Right, there's a couple invoices that we're waiting to see, especially the bar bill. But I'm gonna easily 10 grand.
Great.
Awesome.
So, and that's a first year event. And we learned a lot of really good things at this event, and I think that it generated a lot of buzz on Friday night. So many people sent me messages that said, I really wish I'd been there now. Well, snooze, you lose. I hope we need a bigger venue, frankly. I think it has all the trappings of a really successful, big, embarrassing event for many people. So and thank you guys for putting yourself out there. So, any other questions?
I think a note of thanks to you, Jen, for all of your work over the last 3 years is certainly owed. And you have been terrific, and I think all of those things that you checked off your list certainly you've accomplished, and appreciate the relationship that you've developed with the board over the years. We're excited to have Scott join us. We saw him on stage as well, and we know he's willing to put himself out there as well. So, and you've got a great person in Karen as well to help with those day-to-day operations and make all of this work together. So thanks to both of you and all of your board members for supporting the district and our kids.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Okay. All right, next we'll turn it over to Carla Reese to talk about the 16-17 enrollment.
Yep. Good evening. I am pleased to come before you tonight and share the most recent numbers that we have for our enrollment report. What happens is every year on October 1st, that's considered count date for the state of Iowa. So students in Power School, that information basically is pushed up to the Department of Ed, and that becomes our certified enrollment or our certified count. That is how our district is funded. That's how every district in Iowa is funded based on those numbers. So I'm going to share with you a few of the trends from that report over the course from last year to this year. We're going to start with some longitudinal data. And what you see here is 6 years of data, and that represents students currently attending in our physical buildings. So this number does not represent our homeschool assistance program, students who may not attend our buildings, but these are students who are in our buildings on a regular basis. And we had a slight uptick of about 52 students in that. This is not a weighted count. These are actual numbers of students. Some trends that we tend to look at with our enrollment data is we look at students that enroll by level, elementary, middle, and high, and just compare that from year to year. So here's 6 years of data. The bottom lighter green is our elementary, the middle darker green is middle school, and then the kind of bluish green is at the high school level. We had about 88 more high school students, but middle school students stayed exactly the same. I think that's rare. In another 10 years, we might not ever see that again. So, and we gained about 15 elementary students.
So Carla, there was a question on that slide.
Yep.
So 7241, did it actually go down by 15 to 7226, or are those numbers just inverted?
It should have been a decrease. Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good to know. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, slight decrease there. Sorry about that. We'll get that fixed. The other thing that we look at is free reduced lunch percentages. And we have those broken out for you by elementary, middle, high, and then the district is the kind of greenish bar on the right. We have had a slight increase in our free reduced lunch percentages. As a district, we've gone from 47% to 50% for this school year, and that's based on families that apply for free and reduced lunch. And we had a slight uptick actually at all of the levels there.
Was there any reason for that we know of? I mean,
not that I'm aware
was there
of.
talk of putting some of the students all into lunch programs? Or?
We do have, I believe the acronym is CEP, and I'm not 100% sure what that stands for, meaning there are certain schools where every student receives meals regardless of their status. They don't necessarily have to apply for that. But if they want fees or anything like that waived, they do need to complete those enrollment forms. So I don't think that probably impacted this number.
And one of the challenges for districts going forward, the more of those CEP programs
I
you
think
have.
that's the right acronym.
Yeah, it's, but essentially, the idea will be, it will be more and more difficult to get as accurate a percentage of free and reduced lunch over time with more and more schools moving to CP. So, the upside though is we're getting kids meals and.
Right.
That's good stuff.
The other piece that we look at historically is our enrollment trends by ethnicity. And so you can see this is 5 years worth of data here. 69% of our population was white, 22% of our student body was African American, 5% Hispanic, 3% Asian, and 1% Indian Pacific Islander. So not major changes from year to year on that, just slight changes there. Just some other information that I thought was interesting. For the first time, we've kind of, I've asked for a report on different languages. We've always kind of tracked that, not as formally though. We had 62 different languages that were identified in the in Power School this year, which I thought was interesting. And 5% of our students are English language learners. So just kind of a tidbit there for information. And then our certified enrollment are weighted total. So what this represents is this represents every student, not individual student. It represents students times their weighting. So for example, a homeschool student is only weighted as a 0.3, but so if say we have 100 of them times 0.3, that's what this number reflects. It's sometimes called your funded amount. Mm-hmm. So we'll be funded for that amount of students. Some students, maybe if they require a lot of support, they may be funded at a little bit above a 1.0. So it's not individual students here, so I just want to make that clear. But that also has increased. And questions?
So the 60-some different languages, what's the most prominent?
English, and then Spanish.
Spanish, okay.
Yeah.
So you talked about, and we saw the decrease in our Caucasian populations and increase in African American. The others seem to be staying pretty much the same. This is district-wide information.
Yes, it is district-wide.
Do we see difference in trends at the different levels? Elementary, middle, high school, do you know?
We do have a complete report that breaks that out for each building. We can share that with you.
That'd be interesting to see those.
Yeah, and there's a fair amount of variance by building.
Yeah.
So I just had a quick question. So when we're looking at the percentage of Indian and Pacific Islander students, did we just not have any students prior to 2014-15?
Yep, there was not enough to report.
Okay.
So, and does that include students with backgrounds from India, or is that different?
That is however, that is kind of the parent's choice, how they identify.
Okay.
So it's how they're identified in Power School.
And I'm trying to think back registration-wise when everything was moved fully online, and whether or not that might have had an impact on how, someone determined what particular group they fit into.
Possibly.
Because that change was how many years back? 2 or 3 or so? Or maybe there was options where before you'd have to write something down? Longer?
I think it may have been longer.
Okay.
There's still a home language survey, and there are still paper enrollment forms that students or families do complete as well. But that stuff is then entered into Power School.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly the year that it went
Yeah, I don't know.
electronically.
Great. Anything else? Thank you so much for the information. It's a positive trend,
It
which
is a positive
is
trend.
much better than the other option we could have faced.
It
so
is modest,
Yeah.
but it's positive.
It's positive.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, next we'll turn it over to Laurel and Dr. Buck for the policy manual reviews.
We have a slew of policy manuals, documents for you to look at tonight. Most of these just recently came from the Policy Review Committee work that was done in November, just a week ago, where we had legal counsel actually present with us. So most of what you're seeing are changes that were recommended by them and endorsed by their expertise. We will answer any questions that you have.
I really liked a lot of the changes. I thought it was a very thorough review. So thanks for the time and energy you put in this. It really tightened up that language from my perspective.
We would agree.
Other questions, comments? There was one question that was written to at least one board member about the Wednesday evening, the no activities, I think it was in here. So is that anything that you want to address? Just the general theme of the reasons for having Wednesday evening kind of as a free evening and the restrictions on that?
We didn't make significant changes to that policy, so that's kind of the
That's the way it's
long-standing
been.
experience for our community.
Yeah, because I compared what was out there now versus what was there, and there was no change.
Yeah, so that's kind of what the community has come to expect from Wednesday night. So.
Okay, great. Anything else? All right, thank you so much.
The policies will come back then at our December board meeting for your approval consideration.
Great. Before we adjourn, I do want to turn it over to Mr. Dooley.
Thank you. We did experience another death in the district this month. Rebecca Lynn Paulson, who's 43, of Marion. She passed away on Wednesday, November the 2nd, from an extended illness. She was a kindergarten teacher at Madison, and they said she absolutely loved being a teacher, and her students were a highlight of her life. A parent wrote, "I first just wanted to say that she was an amazing woman. I am truly sorry for her family's loss. She was my son's teacher, and she helped him so much and made him love school. She was his favorite teacher." A coworker said that as a new teacher to Madison, my first collaboration was with Rebecca, assisting her kindergarten class on the first day of school. The quality of her planning, thoughtfulness of expression, and consistent demeanor have made a lasting impression on me. It's obvious she made a significant impact on her students and staff during her life. She'll be sorely missed. So I'd request a moment of silence as we remember Rebecca and her family.
Great. Thank you very much. And all of our thoughts and prayers are with Rebecca's family and their moment of grief. And so thank you so much for that, Rod. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. And board members, remember your evaluations and take great notes in Des Moines since I won't be able to be there. Thanks.